Hi there, my name is Sue Xenos. I'm the principal here at Tomaree High School. I'd just like to take a few minutes to give you some information about the HSC for 2023. If your student's in Year 10 at this point, this is what the year that they will graduate. Throughout Year 11, students will do 3 formal assessment tasks, and in Year 12 they will do 4 formal assessment tasks. We get a raw assessment mark. In Year 12 only, this one is sent into NESA. Students will get to know their rank but not their final mark. They then do the HSC exam, so they will sit. The students and the schools never know the raw score that they get in the exam. This can be quite confusing at times, but I'll explain a little bit more about the scaling system that happens. Where students typically are then placed into bands, and we work on, if you get a band 6, you get a mark between 90 and 100. If they're a band 2, you'll get a mark between 50 and 60. Very low scores are often reported as a band 1 or a 2, but they were considered sufficient to demonstrate the minimum standard for that subject. The next step that happens is out of our hands. It is an assessment moderation that follows the completion of the external examination. The marks that were submitted by the school, and they are moderated. The reason they're moderated is to ensure that there is some fairness. We don't know what assessment tasks students do at other schools. We don't know whether they are harder, more easily done, or have given a student in another school an advantage, or whether we have given our students an advantage. So for this reason, moderation occurs. Moderation is quite a difficult process. It's something that is out of our hands. If you take the time to have a look at this website that's at the bottom, you will get to see this little video that's on the screen here. This gives you quite a good explanation about how the marks are moderated, what happens to their exam mark, what happens to their assessment mark, and why it happens. It's not something that people should be too worried about. We often get people saying, it's not fair, my marks were dragged down by a student who didn't perform. There are checks and balances in place to ensure that if a student does very poorly, their marks are taken out, and likewise if a student does extremely well, well above everybody else, that mark is not included in the initial allocations. This video will give you some more information about that, and hopefully it will help clarify some of the misconceptions about moderation. So once the marks are moderated, we end up with an Atar calculation. It's important to know Atar is based on the 10 units of Atar courses that they have done. Must include 2 best units of English and then the remaining 8. So if a student's doing 12 units of work and they sit the exams for all 12 units, so that typically is 6 subjects, only 5 of those will be counted. You can count 2 units of category B, and I think this is important where students are doing something like hospitality, construction, primary industries, that if they sit the optional exam because they want to get an Atar, they can count that exam to it. Don't believe comments that people say that won't get you a good HSC. There are many examples of students achieving an Atar in the 90s with a VET course, because the issue is, have you tried your best and are you able to do it? So the Atar, it's really important. It is a rank. It's a position, not a mark. And that's the hardest thing for people to work with. It gives you some more information here. If you have an Atar of 80, you're in the top 20% of students of your Year 7 group, not Year 12 group. So there's lots and lots of complex calculations going in there to make that Atar rank. It is a rank, not a mark. It is intended to select school leavers for admission to university. That is the sole purpose of an Atar. It is not to do anything else with. If you are not going to university, you may choose not to do an Atar pathway, but it doesn't hurt to get an Atar if that's the pathway that you have anyway. Many students already have early entry and don't need their Atar at the end, so it's not something that you need to be really worried about or think that you've somehow failed. It is a rank of how you did against everybody else that year doing the set of subjects that you have done. The next part that's really important for the HSC is something that's only been in for a few years, and this is the minimum standards. Students cannot graduate the HSC if they have not received a minimum standard in reading and numeracy. How do students meet the minimum standards? They will sit 3 tests, reading, writing and numeracy, and they need to attain a level 3. For all of our students, that is quite attainable. This year, Year 10 will start to sit those tests at the end of Year 10. You get to have a go at them a couple of times in the year. They're not meant to be week by week by week having a go all the time. We're meant to have a look at areas that you need some help in. You'll get some additional support through our learning support teachers so that we can get you across the line for those minimum standards. In time, I believe the minimum standards test will become quite important for employers who it is the one way that they can assess and make sure their people that they're going to employ have reached that level 3. Level 3 refers to a basic level of reading, writing and numeracy that you can function within society. Reading timetables, knowing how to count money, very basic things. So most students should not be afraid of trying to achieve that. Last year, 100% of people who wanted a minimum standards achieved the minimum standards here at this school. So what is it? It's some multiple choice questions for reading and numeracy and a writing test. So you can, there are practice tests that you can go online and have a look at to have a go before we get them, but you do get several attempts to have a go at that. So if you don't meet a minimum standards, you can still do all of the things on this list. You can still receive a minimum standards report. It just means that you won't have achieved at the level 3 minimum standards. You can, interestingly enough, still achieve an Atar, but you won't. You can sit your exams, but you won't receive the formal HSC test mark if you didn't meet the standards. This is what the certification looks like, and what we're going for is this level 3 section in the middle here, and stating exactly what we expect them to be able to do in the reading test, or there'll be one for writing and the one for numeracy as well. So a number of pathways that students can choose. They achieve all the standards, they don't have to do it once. They can choose ATAR or non-ATAR pathways, so they have a number of options that they can get. They can be eligible for the HSC, eligible for ROSA, and get their minimum standards. If they don't get them all, they have up to 5 years to sit those standard tests online. So if that's the only thing holding you up, you can come back and do it later. If they receive some end determinations, meaning that they didn't complete all their work, they may get their minimum standards report but not their HSC. They could get their minimum standards report and a ROSA, and they leave school before the HSC but do that minimum standards. But if you didn't do any minimum standards test before you leave, you can only get a ROSA, when the ROSA is a record of secondary attainment. So just the last section here is to give you a couple of ideas of the types of questions that are asked. You'll see that they're not particularly difficult for students that are in year 10 and 11 and 12. Have a look, have a go at them yourself and see how you think you would go with the minimum standards. Another question about nouns. Most students would be able to do this. Some numeracy questions. This one took me a little bit of time. I had to go back and think myself, but certainly well and truly. Other types of questions that they would have, the little calculator. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. I hope that you found the information useful. If you need further information, Mr. McElwain, Mr. Colley, Mr. Anderson, or any classroom teacher will be able to give you further information about how to go about selecting subjects, what combination of subjects you might like. My advice to all students is that you choose subjects based on ones that you enjoy and subjects that you're prepared to work hard at. Please don't choose subjects based on what you think you will end up with an ATAR with. It is very difficult to determine that. You are going to get your best results working on subjects that you like, subjects that you think you can work hard at, and there's no substitute for hard work in the HSC. So I wish everybody all the best. Looking forward to some great results and great outcomes for students in 2023. Thank you.